Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Of course, we just got the biggest Warzone meta update in history. The whole Season 4 Reloaded update brought in so many weapon changes. We saw buffs, we saw nerfs, we saw all kinds of different adjustments to Cold War weapons, to Modern Warfare weapons, you name it. It probably was adjusted in some way, shape, or form. We had like 35 plus different weapon changes in this update alone. And of course, you're probably sitting there wondering, well, what weapons am I gonna use now? What are the best loadouts to be running now in Season 4 after the whole mid-season update? And don't worry, I got you covered today. We are breaking down the top 10 best loadouts to be using right now in Call of Duty Warzone. So if you enjoy the video at any point, or if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. Would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you are new to the channel, or if you haven't already subscribed, just over 55% of you guys watching aren't already subbed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in COD, news, updates, loadouts, it is all right here. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. Also, right now, my G Fuel discount code WHosImmortal will get you 30% off your entire order. So if you want to grab a new tub, a shaker cup, a starter pack, anything from the G Fuel site, Code WHosImmortal has got you covered. All right, so as always, we've got our 10 loadouts. Each of these is built a different way with some different weapons to feature what I think are the 10 best loadouts in Warzone right now. First up, though, we're gonna start with my two basic ones that we always cover at the start of every single best loadouts video, and those are my regain classes. First up, we have my basic rifle regain class. This is used for if I die, I go in, drop a W in the ghoulie, come back out, I need to get that loadout regain, and I can get back on track for the match, or hey, maybe you're the last one up, you need to grab something quick that's going to be able to keep you alive while you're trying to get your team back, something like that. Any kind of regain purpose. This is mainly my go-to one here. Features the Grau and the Psychov. So when it comes to the Grau, pretty basic setup here. Monolithic suppressor, Archangel barrel, commando foregrip, 60 round mags. And then because this is a regain loadout, of course, we want to be able to maximize our ammo and get all that ammo right away. So I do use fully loaded. That said, if you just wanted to use the Grau as a basic weapon, drop fully loaded, go ahead and put on the tac laser instead. That'd be my basic Grau setup. And now, because of the whole Season 4 Reloaded update, the Grau is actually really good. It got that nice damage buff. So this is by far the best regain setup, in my opinion, as far as like an individual weapon goes. By far the best fully loaded rifle weapon. This setup is going to fry. It's actually going to feel really good as just a basic setup in general. For the Psychov, same old here. Monolithic suppressor, 140 millimeter automatic barrel to make it easier to use. The 80 round drums, you could always go 22 if you don't want to be bogged down by those too much. I go for the Priz Rack grip, get some better mobility out of that. Then of course we go for fully loaded yet again to maximize that pistol and that SMG ammo. Now on a fully loaded class, I'm using double time, restock, and amped. That way I can keep replenishing my thermites and my stuns for my equipment. But if it was a basic setup like what you'll see as we get further on into the video, obviously I'm going to be using overkill to start things off there. And then I'll usually switch to a different restock loadout like this, for instance. That way I can get restock, I can have both my weapons, and I'm good to go. Now, depending on the zone and what's going on in that game, if I want to have a sniper out right away as sort of my regain, then I'll go ahead and switch out the Grau for the car. The rest of the setup stays the same Psychov, same perks and equipment, all that stuff. But of course, I'm obviously using a car. So if the zone is in one of the more open areas or like the edge of the map where sniping is going to be a bit more beneficial, I might swap to this. It's going to give me that better advantage late game, or if I just need that ranged option right away, right? So here we've got monolithic suppressor, the 27.6 inch barrel, tac laser, the sniper scope. That's like all usual stuff. And then again, I do have fully loaded on there. That way I can maximize my sniper ammo and get the max for that. Now, getting into the actual loadouts here, the main ones that I'm running right away, game in and game out. First up, we're looking at the newly buffed Krig, and then also the brand new OTS-9. I've got the weapon blueprint on here as well, but you can just use the basic one too if you have that unlocked. That doesn't really matter too much, but these two combined is actually a pretty solid class. This SMG, the TTK on the OTS-9, is very impressive now, especially after so many other SMGs got nerfed with the Season 4 Reloaded update. So this one's TTK, very impressive. It does have that smaller magazine, so it's sort of kept in check there, but definitely one of the best options in the game right now. Then the Krig is honestly one of the new better rifles. Previously, I thought it was a bit overrated because the damage wasn't too impressive on it. But lo and behold, they ended up updating the damage and buffing the damage with the latest update. So now it's actually a lot more versatile and a lot more efficient as a rifle in general. As far as this setup goes, we're basically building this like we would any other main Cold War rifle that you want to use for range. First up, we of course have the agency suppressor. I go for the mil-spec barrel. You're getting the better range, the better velocity, and the better control out of this. If you don't want all the cons that this comes with, though, swap out for the Ranger or even the Takedown. Either of those can actually work out pretty well. Ranger, I'd probably go over Takedown initially. But personally, for a long-range rifle, I feel like mil-spec is the best option there. Currently, I'm still sticking with 3 times on this. 4 times is definitely viable, as we know that is going to reduce the recoil in some situations. Really just comes down to preference there, though. The Krig is super easy to use, so I don't feel like that recoil adjustment is super necessary. Obviously, I'm not even running an underbarrel on this because it's just so easy. We, of course, have the 60-round mag on there, and then finally I go for the Raider stock for better mobility. Now, as far as the OTS-9 goes, this is pretty much your basic Cold War SMG setup, just copy and paste it here. It works for almost every Cold War sub in the game. GRU suppressor first and foremost. You could use sound suppressor, but I feel like you're going to get more out of a sub if you get the GRU on there. You get slightly better range because a lot of them do fall off pretty quickly. You go for task force barrel. It's the best option for all the subs. The Tiger Team spotlight for better mobility, but if you're not too focused on that, maybe you're having trouble controlling the recoil or something like that, you could always drop the Tiger Team and go for like the Spetsnaz grip instead. But personally, I find this weapon pretty easy to use as well after you learn that pattern. We go for the VDV 40-round fast mag. Usually fast mags aren't the go-to because they do hurt that ADS. While this one is doing that, it reloads so fast, and you are reloading pretty often because it's only a 40-round mag, that I like to have it on there, honestly. But the basic 40-round is also viable there. And then lastly, I go for the skeletal stock. That's going to give me some better mobility as well. And like I said, double time overkill amped. That's the basic perks on all the main loadouts that aren't regain or restock loadouts, and thermite and stuns are on all my classes as well. Now, loadout number 2 is going to be one of my main sniping loadouts. I've got 2 main sniping loadouts. We'll see another one later on in the video. This one, though, does indeed feature the car. And this is pretty much the same setup that we just looked at. Monolithic, 27.6-inch barrel, tac laser, sniper scope, but instead of using fully loaded, obviously, so we can regain, we go for the sport comb stock that gives us a better ADS time. You could also go for something like the stipple grip tape or even the precision comb stock if you wanted to get some better mobility there. But this, I really enjoy. It's a super smooth and super easy sniper to use. Obviously, the car is the #1 most used sniper in the game for a reason, and it's sort of a no-brainer to have it on the best list of loadouts in Season 4 right now because it wasn't touched in the last update. And sort of pair with that, we've got my sniper support option here, the Milano, which, yes, it was nerfed, but when it comes to SMGs that have great mobility and then also can actually be sort of a hybrid weapon in the sense of using it up close and in a medium range, the Milano is very, very good at that still, despite the slight range nerf that it did get with the last update. So it's going to be slightly less efficient than before, but overall still probably the best SMG in terms of a sniper support weapon. And here we're going once again agency. We go for task force, Tiger Team. I also go for the 55-round fast mag on here because the ADS con is actually not active on the Milano for some reason. And then also the Raider stock, yet again, same old copy and paste Cold War sub setup, and it works great up close and at some decent medium ranges as well. Now, this next loadout I would say is probably the new #1 loadout in the game in terms of what is the best in Season 4. We've got the C58 and we've got the Modern Warfare MP5. And I say this is the new #1 loadout because I would say the C58 is the new best rifle and the Modern Warfare MP5 is the new best SMG after all these nerfs and after all these adjustments. The Modern Warfare MP5 was not touched in the update, so it is just as good as it was before, which was very good. The C58, however, was nerfed in this update. It got some multiplier decreases. I believe it got some added recoil, but the recoil on this thing really is not all that bad. You got the 4x scope on there, which is going to help out with that, as we know. You throw on an underbarrel, like you're pretty much good to go. And the base damage was not nerfed, so this thing is still very, very powerful. It's just the multipliers that won't be as dominant as they were before. But overall, this thing is still going to fry in medium and long range fights. One of the best TTKs in terms of rifles and honestly just general weapons in the game. Pretty basic setup, agency suppressor, task force barrel for all the pros that we listed back on the Krig, field agent to control that recoil, the 55-round mag, then like I said, the 4x, which is going to give you that extra zoom, so it's a bit easier to stay on target at longer ranges, and it also will help out with the recoil a bit too. And then on the Modern Warfare MP5, pretty much nothing new here. Monolithic integral suppressor, 5mm laser, and the Merc foregrip to make that hip fire just insane. We go for the 45-round mags, and then honestly, the last attachment you can just mess around with. I go for the collapsible stock for some better mobility. You could go for sleight of hand if you wanted to. You could go for the stippy grippy if you wanted to. Any of those options will work great on this. It's a beast of an SMG. We've known this since launch. Moving on, the AMAX is back. Honestly, though, it really never left. It just wasn't as good as it once was after it got the nerfs with Season 4. But this thing did actually get a buff and a nerf with this last update. So its headshot multiplier is now a tad bit better, whereas I believe its chest multiplier is a tad bit worse. Honestly, though, it's still probably the #1 Modern Warfare rifle in the game. I mean, it's so easy to use. Everyone is comfortable with it at this point. It's great for medium and long range fights. It's not going to be obviously as dominant as it was back in Season 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, back in Modern Warfare times. But it is still a really, really good option, especially where the TTK is now across all the rifles. You can definitely get away with using this as one of the better options. Pretty basic setup. Really nothing new here either. Monolithic suppressor, Zodiac barrel for the best range and control, Commando foregrip for better control, 45-round mags, then also the VLK 3x optic with the T-pose reticle. And then to pair with that, we've got the Cold War MP5. Yes, this was also nerfed, but pretty much so was every other meta SMG that we were using as is. So while all the others are going to feel worse, so is this one. So it's like they all just took one step back together. So what was good before is still going to be good now, but overall, they're just all not going to be as good as they were before. But same setup here as well. This is built for primarily mobility and focusing around that 0 to like 12 meter range where this thing is really going to absolutely just fry everyone. We've got the agency suppressor yet again, Tiger Team Spotlight, the Bruiser Grip, the 50 round drum, and the Raider stock. If you wanted to go for a barrel, I would probably recommend Task Force, but this is going to hurt the control a little bit. And the recoil on the Cold War MP5 is not super ideal compared to other weapons. So I forego a barrel there. You don't honestly need one, especially with how good this weapon is up close. So this to me is great for mobility. Absolutely going to fry up close. Then this next loadout is sort of my double AR meta testing loadout, you could say, because I feel like the double AR meta does exist still to a certain extent. For the primary here, you can use really any main rifle that you're comfortable with. For me, it's the C58. That's my new go-to rifle. You could use the AMAX, the Grau, the Krig, the FARA. Anything that you like is a great choice here for a primary rifle, so long as that's focusing on the medium and the long range. For the close range, I then go for the XM4 because the nerfs really didn't help its long range. Unfortunately, the XM4 at a range is not what it was prior to this update. Up close, though, it's still relatively good. It's not going to be as effective because, of course, it did get some nerfs to that as well. But as a close-range weapon, sort of trying to build this as an SMG, honestly, the XM4 is still pretty good. Here I go for the agency suppressor. We're not going for a barrel because you don't need that in close-range fights. It's not going to help you there. If you're using long range, obviously, we'd probably go in for Task Force for all the benefits there. But like I said, no barrel instead. Tiger Team Spotlight, you get some better mobility. The 60 round mag, you could also go 45 if you wanted to get some better mobility out of that. I go for the Microflex LED. I don't really like the iron sights all that much, and we don't need any, zoomed in ones because we're using this up close. Then finally, the Raider pad stock yet again. The recoil really is not an issue up close, even though it was nerfed slightly with the last update. But overall, as a close range rifle, if you're trying to use an AR as a sub, I think the XM4 is probably the best option. And we got 3 loadouts left. This one is featuring the FARA and actually the Bullfrog. The FARA was nerfed a decent amount, but the reason I still have this in the top 10 is because I envision this basically being the new Kilo, right? The Kilo was the most popular weapon back in Season 4, Season 5, Season 6 of Modern Warfare. It got nerfed, but everyone was still using it. It was still a top weapon because it was just so easy to use. The damage was not phenomenal on it, just like the damage is not phenomenal on the FARA now because it was nerfed. However, it's a no-brainer weapon. You don't have to do anything to control the recoil. It's a point and shoot and you're pretty much good. So despite not having great damage, because it is just so easy to stay on target, you're pretty much good. And it sort of just works out, right? It's weird how that factors into the whole meta here. You'd think the higher damage weapons would be those most optimal ones, and a lower damage weapon or a mid damage weapon is really what the FARA is like now comparatively. Wouldn't be as popular, but the ease of use here is what makes this thing one of the better weapons in the game. Same setup as before though, Gru suppressor, RPK barrel, Spetsnaz grip now to really minimize that recoil, make it an absolute laser. 60 round mag and then your optic of choice. I like the 3x for this because the recoil is so easy. You don't really need the 4x, but if you wanted to, you could go for that as well. And then for the Bullfrog, really, you have to force this into those CQB engagements. If you get past like that 14, 15 meter range, it's not going to be a good weapon, just plain and simple. But just like the Cold War MP5, up close where you should be using an SMG, it's insane. The headshot multiplier is great, even after a couple of adjustments. Within that 14 meter range, this thing has a great TTK. So if you force yourself to use this as your close range weapon and you consistently hold it within that range, it's still going to feel very good. Luckily, we got that larger magazine, so we don't have to worry about an ammo attachment. Instead, we go for the Gru suppressor yet again, try and help out with that range a bit. Task Force, same deal. Tiger Team and Bruiser, just like on the Cold War MP5 to get some insane mobility. Then also the skeletal stock as well, get some better mobility out of that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we do have another sniper setup, and this is probably the new best sniper setup in the game, I would say. We've got the Swiss, which recently got some changes to its scope, which I feel like makes it so much better. Its animation was also smoothed out. Like, this thing is really good, and statistically is better than the car in quite a few different areas. And the Modern Warfare MP7 wasn't actually adjusted at all in this past update, but because everything else was nerfed and this wasn't, it's sort of now in line with all those, and it is a great hybrid SMG. Great for close range and great for some medium range fights as well, and also very easy to use. As far as the Swiss goes, we're trying to build this like the car for some better mobility and then also just some range benefits as well. So we go for the Gru suppressor, combat recon barrel. Those two combined will give you some great velocity. The 5 milliwatt laser is basically like the TAC laser, but for Cold War weapons. I go for the 7-round mag because you don't need to use an optic. The base optic is great now, and that reload, not slow at all because it's a mag. You don't have to chamber in individual shots like you would on the car, so that's nice and quick. And then lastly, I go for the Serpent Grip, get some better ADS time out of that. You don't really need a stock in my opinion because none of those really benefit a sniper all that much for Cold War weapons. And then for the MP7, it's the same setup we've been running since launch. Monolithic suppressor, recon barrel, tac laser for speed and stability, 60-round mags, and the icon, the Stippy Grippy. And then the last setup we're looking at today is sort of my experimental loadout. It's the PKM, which actually got a buff and a nerf. Its range got reduced, but its damage got buffed, which is kind of interesting. This thing is probably the best LMG in the game. And I pair it with the MAC 10. And by the way, obviously this is all the loadouts in the video now. You can go through, you can swap out the MAC 10 for the Bullfrog if you wanted to, or the MP5 with the AMAX. You can, flip-flop all the primaries and secondaries here on pretty much any loadout, minus the sniper ones, and they're going to work great together. I just want to feature, obviously, as many weapons as possible. But the PKM, it's still a powerhouse. It's going to fry. The MAC 10, slight nerf, just like everything else, so it's going to be equally as competitive with all the other SMGs. They're just all slightly worse than before. As far as the PKM setup goes, monolithic suppressor, heavy barrel, the snatch grip, which is great because it actually helps with recoil and mobility, which is an awesome combination there. VOK 3x optic, and also the stipple grip tape. You don't always have to have that. Sleight of hand could definitely be useful here because that larger magazine, that slower reload. You could go for a tac laser, get a better ADS time. You can go for no stock, get some better mobility. Sort of comes down to preference there. And then for the MAC 10, same old, you know, we're frying and flying with this thing. Agency suppressor, task force, Tiger team for better mobility, 53-round drum, and the Raider stock to close things out. All right, little post-edit Zach here. I know I said that was the last setup, but after I thought about this some, I didn't include the Cold War AK-47, which, yes, it got some multiplier nerfs, but it's still actually a really good rifle. Personally, I think it excels the most in close to medium range fights, so we're sort of building this out like we did with the XM4. I'd go for Grew Suppressor, Tiger Team Spotlight, Microflex LED, Skeletal Stock, and the 45 or the 60-round mag. If you wanted to build this for range, basically like copy and paste the C58 or the Krig setup onto this and it'll work just fine too. So there you have it. Those are the top 10 best loadouts here in Season 4 after the mid-season update, in my opinion. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. If it did, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, if you want to see more content like this and also stay up to date with everything going on in COD in general, feel free to subscribe. That way you'll always know whenever I post a new video. Once again, and as always, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.